find one of them said you queen heroes. You gotta find them.
Yeah, and in the rest of the nobody's gonna.
Yeah, buddy. Off we go. Like 50 miles from the Mexican border right now. The Schwartz be with you. What do you think, Ryan? Okay, so here we are in Ajo, Arizona. This is a beautiful historic town not far from the Mexican border, and the monsoons are coming in on us right now. You can hear the thunder clapping in the distance, and the rain is starting to fall. We're getting ready to start our adventure across the El Camino del Diablo. Now, there's some practical considerations around taking an EV on the longest unsupported overland route in the lower 48 states. We've got to get fully charged up here while we're in town before we head out on nearly 160 miles until the next charging station. So pretty simple here. We're actually going to just plug it right in to the electrical panel. Like that. You can see the light comes on. And then the charging ports on EVs, those aren't standardized yet. They can be hidden traps, doors, whatever. The Hummer is like a typical gas port, really simple to open. And then when we look on the inside, so this is gonna be your standard J-type charger. But then when we're in a really fast charger, rapid charger, you actually remove that plug and you get a lot more current flowing in there. So now we're plugged in, and what we're looking for is a green light to come on. So you can see here underneath this dust flap that we're getting green means go. So that's what we want. So we're getting the vehicle topped off. We're at about 220 miles of range right now, and we need to get it up to 330. So that way we have enough reserve capacity for a couple reasons. We're going to be in deep sand. We're going to be driving slow speed over rocks and rugged terrain. We always have to be prepared for a point of no return. If we get most of the way through the trip and we run into a road closure or an event occurs that requires the Border Patrol to tell us to turn around, we've got to be able to get back. So we've got the truck plugged in. Everything's working, which is awesome because there's very few options here to charge in Ajo. We actually have a charge point that's at a market, but it's even slower than this one is, and you'd have to pay for the charging at a much higher rate than you'd have to pay at an RV park, paying $5 to charge the truck. There's a couple ways that we can see the state of charge. You can see it very easily visually, even from a distance. There are not 10 LEDs here, but there's enough to be able to gauge, am I at a quarter, am I at a half, am I at 2/3? And we're just about 2/3 state of charge right now, and it's going to take us about 10 hours to charge the vehicle up. And when we look inside the vehicle, when we open up the door, it's going to give us a couple indications as well. It's going to show us that in this case, we're at about 60-something%. State of charge is also going to tell us when the charging is going to be completed, which is going to be at 4:50 in the morning tomorrow. So that gives us a sense of it as well. And then if you have the My GMC app and this vehicle is loaded up, you can actually see that remotely from your phone to gauge your state of charge as well. So this is all part of the EV charging game because it allows you to do other things. Like we're gonna go have dinner, and we're gonna actually get a great night's rest here in Ajo at this super cool little hotel that they converted from a school. So we're gonna get a good night's rest, and in the morning, the trucks will be ready for the adventure. I'm sorry that the view sucks right off the bat. All right, so we are getting closer to the Mexican border. You just saw the Border Patrol flying by, and we've got somewhat of a sign that's giving us a travel warning that we're heading into an area of smuggling and illegal immigration. So we're heading into the Organ Pipe National Monument here in a little bit. It's a beautiful part of the country, but because of its proximity to the border, it's under a lot of pressure, particularly from smuggling right now. So we travel during the day and we pay attention to what we're doing, and we also talk to the locals. We talk to the Border Patrol agents as we encounter them to get insights about what's going on in the area. Wow, just look at this sunrise coming up over the mountains. We can see the mountains in the distance are actually in Mexico. We're that close to the border.
Hi, welcome to my vlog.
Well, it has been wet on El Camino del Diablo, which means lots of rain from the monsoon season. So we even have mud and water on the trail. Yeah, pretty rare.
Back in the game, baby.
That's right. Okay, so we're at Bates Well here in the Organ Pipe National Monument, and normally ranching isn't allowed in areas like this, but because the family was already out here, they allowed them to continue to operate here in the Organ Pipe. So imagine living in a spot like this with how hot it would be in the summertime. Of course, it would be beautiful in the winter, but very simple accommodations here. And Henry Gray, who was the last of the family members living, continued to live here until deep into the 1970s. And they continued to run cattle, even though the Organ Pipe wouldn't normally allow for cattle ranching, but they let him do that until his death. And now it's just part of the El Camino del Diablo route. You get to see it, but it's still got the original stove, and you can kind of see how simple life was out here. So we're coming up on this large Border Patrol station. They actually have a little motor pool here and everything. It's I call it like a forward control operation. And we're just about 30 miles in on the trip.
Yep, got that. Only get some electricity out here.
I'm pretty sure they're on generator out here. Okay, so we are just entering the Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge. So this is actually a corridor. El Camino del Diablo is a trail, is a vehicle corridor through this wildlife refuge, and there's actually a lot of really rare animals in here, including the desert pronghorn. There's some mountain sheep as well, some small coos, deer. So there's actually quite a bit of animal life here because it's so remote and it's so untouched. Try rear steering off. It's interesting, especially in off-road mode, with how fast the steering is. And it can actually swing the rear axle out of the sandy rut, which is kind of, so it feels floaty.
Yeah.
It's cool though. It's like super useful, but it's just trying to see how it's a little different. Just rear steering off. It just feels more predictable. It is said that Edward Abbey is buried out here somewhere.
Who is Edward Abbey?
Monkey Wrench Gang.
Monkey Wrench Gang?
Famous. He was an environmental advocate, but like back when they were doing all the right things, he was just really trying to preserve places like this. So. I'm on the hunt for a grave. No dice.
I think you're being confused by rock stacks, Scott. Don't do it. Be careful, it might be a trap.
I was running.
Find it. Yeah, we haven't seen anybody out here.
We haven't. I mean, we saw a couple Border Patrol agents in the beginning, Oregon Pipe, maybe shift change like you said, but nothing since then. There was a parked truck at the remote Border Patrol station. We've not seen another vehicle. Well, we've seen no other recreationists out here. I mean, it might have something to do with the fact that it's 100 degrees out, but pretty amazing. Nobody's out here. So here we are. We're coming up the Tinajas Altas tanks. Could you imagine you've been riding your horse or you've been walking across the desert for days and you're finally coming to this spot? It's the only place with water, but oftentimes it was dry. So here we are at the Tinajas Altas tanks. Now this is a significant watering source along the route. So when Father Kino and the early Spanish explorers and then the Papago indigenous community that was before them would come through this area, this is where they would get water. This lower pool has 20,000 gallons when it's full, and then there's at least 6 pools above it. We found out that there's at least that number because one of the members of our party has decided to climb up towards the top. But this is a really interesting spot along the way. It's kind of fun to find these natural sources of water that people would have used so long ago. But imagine if you get to this location and this lower tank was empty and you had just done 20 miles across the desert, you were dehydrated, most likely wearing leather-soled boots, then you'd have to do effectively a rock scramble up to get to the higher tanks. And a lot of people died in the process of trying to get that water. That's 14-day aged top sirloin. Make for a nice little dinner. Hello. Some migrants here that are crossing the desert. I'm gonna pull over here and let these guys know. Yeah, I
right
see,
there,
I
Betsy.
see.
10 o'clock. One, two, three, four.
All right, guys. So we have illegal aliens up ahead. We're gonna go ahead and drive by. Yeah, we do see them. We have a visual on it. There was at least 4 or 5 of them. So we're just gonna roll on by. I'll probably wave. Okay. But we're just gonna keep moving. Okay. Just wanted you guys to be aware.
I'll grab it.
Yeah, sure.
Can we mount this somewhere?
I just keep it rolling until you have to throw it down. I'll put it on the. You want to put it on the window?
Yeah, those are all. They're running now. Truck mules.
All right, so we do have some illegal immigrants up ahead. It may also be drug mules. They are running right now. And we're trying not to put too much pressure on them, but we also want to get by them. So just want to go ahead and move on through the area and avoid any conflict.
Tucked into that right side column.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to step up the pace because they just went out of view. So we're going to just be moving on by them. I might even go, I should go wide around. We're going to be right here. Yeah, you see them down in there? Wash. They're down in the wash. That worked out. You see him duck right around the rocks. Okay, so we have just completed our objective of crossing El Camino del Diablo in an electric vehicle. Again, this is the longest unsupported overland track that exists in the 48 states. You could certainly put together a loop or some kind of off track that would allow you to get a little bit more distance, but this is from point A to point B across really remote desert landscape along the border of Mexico. And it's over 150 miles between charge points or between gas stations as well. So we've not only accomplished the goal, but we still have nearly 100 miles of range left. And that included us doing some side tracks. We did about 15 miles off to Christmas Pass and back. We left the HVACs running all day long. And there's a couple things that we learned along the way. The goal of this was to do it without any internal combustion engine support or without any charging along the way. So we didn't bring a generator. We didn't bring any solar. We didn't bring any other way to charge the vehicle other than the state of charge that's in it. We did have another vehicle with us. It was another Hummer EV, and it had a truck full of GMC engineers and personnel that were monitoring not only their vehicle, but our vehicle as well. They were looking for things to learn about how to even improve this more for overland travel. On the Hummer itself, it's a very comfortable vehicle to do this kind of travel with. Plenty of payload, air suspension, so it's very low driver fatigue. It's got really good performance at moderate to high speeds. And then of course, you can go into terrain mode, you can lift the suspension, you can get over rocks and other obstacles. In this case, we have some rocky sections, but we've also got a lot of ground clearance challenging washouts. There was a lot of rain that came through here, so a lot of washouts. So the things that I liked about the Hummer was overall very low driver fatigue, very easy to drive on terrain like this. Plenty of space for camping gear as well, so we could take full advantage of the frunk. And then we have a tonneau cover in the rear. We did get some dust ingress, and that's something that they made note of, and they may be able to do some things around that as well. We did also notice that there's not a way to leave an accessory position on to continue to operate the outlets. We needed that because of the warm temperatures overnight to run the fridge. So the only other thing you could do is leave the vehicle on all night, which consumes a lot more energy than just leaving accessory ports on. So hopefully we'll see that as an update in the future as well. But not really a lot of criticisms around the vehicle. It really performed the job just as we would want it to. And to end a route like this with so much state of charge remaining, we can easily have done additional routes and spent additional time, or maybe even left the vehicle on for longer to keep that fridge cool. So now we're gonna just run into Yuma. It's just a few miles away, and we're gonna find a fast charger, and then we'll get topped off and head back to Prescott and the offices there. What an interesting experience for us. This is the kind of thing that we look for. We look for adventure, and it's very clear that EVs are capable of that in North America.
I wanna go back to the early days when life was an escape. Now I just wait for better days. I lost myself in your reality, lost my